You're listening to the Real Returns podcast, where we learn how real investments can make a real impact. Join your hosts, Andrew and Dan, as they share stories and interview business leaders on how real estate and other forms of investment can create meaningful change for individuals and communities around the world.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Real Returns podcast. We are recording this on New Year's Eve, and if you're watching it on YouTube, you can probably tell Dan and I have some ridiculous 2026 glasses on. You ready for the new year? What do you think? What's happening?
I am ready for the new year. I'm super excited, although I will say that these are not ridiculous glasses. These are very elegant, high-end,
people know
designer.
better.
Okay.
Oh, did you get the Versace 2026
yeah,
one?
these
Yeah,
are
those are nice. I thought so.
Man, I'm excited. I've thought a good bit. You know, every year I know you and Shannon and also Laura and I like to think about goals for the new year, and I've thought about some of my goals for 2026. And you want to know my main primary goal for this year?
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it a resolution, but my goal for 2026 is to do half of the things I said I wanted to do in 2025 and maybe some of the ones from 2024, 2023.
Make some progress. Yeah,
but
it's hard. Actually, I think what's the stat? It's like 90% of New Year's resolutions are abandoned in January. So
yeah.
Hey, if you get half done, half is probably more than most, honestly.
Probably so. But no, yeah, I am. It's super fun and fun time of year, and I'm excited.
Yeah, I got to ditch the glasses or I'm going to get a headache while we record this. But hey, this is a special episode. This is our season recap. These tend to be our most listened to episodes. People love to hear what we've done over the past season. Hard to believe we just completed season 7. This will be a little bit of a different episode where we kind of distill some of the takeaways that we had over the past season.
Yeah, I'm excited for this. I'm excited to chat through and just kind of reflect back on some of the conversations we were privileged to have recently. And really, this was a bit of a pivot for the Real Returns podcast as we shifted our focus from being very kind of impact investing oriented, kind of more technical, to just talking about the stories of entrepreneurs and how them, walking through their life and their business has had impact on the world around them, a little bit broader. So I really enjoyed the season. I enjoyed that pivot. What about you? What was your takeaway from the season at large?
Yeah, a lot of diversity among our guests this season. If you just look at what they've done personally, professionally. I was even just looking at the age demographic diversity from sort of newer in the career to, 30, 40-year veterans.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was interesting just to hear a lot of different perspectives. And I really enjoyed that as well. Well, yeah, thanks to you all for listening throughout 2025. We had 8 episodes, 8 different guests. And the first was Grant Cardone. Now, if you don't know who Grant is, people love him. Some people love him. Some people hate him. But the guy has, 20 million followers. So he's done something really impressive. And it was really interesting having him on the podcast just to ask him about what he's done, how he thinks about impact, how he thinks about real estate investing, how he thinks about democratizing real estate investing and, moving from more institutional to more retail investing strategies. So I thought that was really interesting. I think he's a visionary. He talked about Bitcoin infused with real estate and, he's doing some really unique things.
Yeah, I think, he's definitely one of, if not the biggest name that we've had on the podcast. And I mean, no doubt about it, the guy's had a lot of impact. That he's just by sheer numbers, the amount of capital and the number of people that have invested capital with him, he's definitely having a major impact. And it was just interesting to so I wasn't a part of that interview, but to listen in and just get a little glimpse into how he thinks about the world. He does think really big picture. And I love thinking that way. I love being around people that think that way. They're inspiring, they're future oriented. And honestly, also just his vulnerability personally, sharing a little bit of his own story, which it was kind of neat to hear how you were able to connect with that. So, I thought it was a really cool conversation and honestly, just fortunate that you were able to have it.
Yeah, no, it was cool. I mean, I always love kind of the Cinderella story, the rags to riches. It definitely is something that I personally resonate with, just given where I've come from. And, graduating from college, I had no credit, no cash, no experience, bought a duplex, walked away from closing with a check, and I was, I'm 50 grand in debt from borrowing through school and working 2-3 jobs at a time. And that's how I got my start in real estate. And, he kind of had a similar journey, and he's made a real name for himself. And I got to meet him in person actually in October at a YPO event. And it was cool to just say, hey, I had you on the podcast. And he was like, oh yeah, come down and be on my podcast. There's like now a personal relationship and connection there, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then episode 2 was Travis Chappell, which I thought was really interesting. I mean, he had some really wise insights for the next generation. One of the things he said is like, hey, you should be focused on increasing your income, which I've always had that mentality. Like, yeah, you can manage expenses, which is great, but what are you doing to really think about how are you as an individual adding value to the world and then getting paid for that value that you're adding? And he's like really focused on how are you adding value, which I think was super wise, really good words, as opposed to like you're trying to game the system or, get the most pay for the least amount of work. It's like, no, you're trying to add as much value to the world as possible.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that conversation with Travis. I thought he was somebody that was immediately evident that there was so much to learn from him. I loved his path too. He took a non-traditional path to getting to where he is. He was very focused on, yes, skill building, but also relationship building and investing in yourself so that you have something to bring to the world around you. I'm a personal finance enthusiast, and a lot of times the money guys out there, that the Money Guy podcast, they talk a lot about getting a bigger shovel when you're young. If you're trying to build a pile, you want a big shovel. And so how do you do that? You put yourself in a position to earn money. And that is not just about, trying to check boxes on a resume so that you can get a job and that'll pay you as much as possible, but it's about actually developing a skill. And Travis is an example of someone who's clearly done that. And he's adding value to a ton of people with his transparency and his, way of prompting deep thought and getting questions out there. So really just felt privileged to have a conversation with him and learned a ton from Travis.
Yeah. And I think that was really the goal. He talked a lot about just learning and improving yourself and growth. And we learned from him. And one of the things I really like that he talked about is he said, investing in yourself is the highest ROI. And as we go into 2026, Burgo's theme for the year is actually going to be all around growth. And that's growth personally, growth professionally, and growth as a company. And I think it's really, one of the pillars of who we are. I mean, thinking about continuous improvement, my YPO forum is called Kaizen, continuous improvement. And I think about that a lot. Just what are we all doing to continually improve ourselves as, people and as professionals that are accomplishing things throughout our career.
Yeah. That resonates with me just on a personal level too, as an entrepreneur. Just been in a season recently where I'm thinking differently and uniquely about how can I grow? What is the next thing that I can learn? What's the next level? And so being around people who encourage us to think that way and to never stop thinking that way, even at, mid-career or whatever, I think it's just super inspiring to think in that way. Next up, we had Michael Johnson. I was not able to be a part of that interview either, but Michael, I think, was really interesting. He's a part of university ecosystems, and so he took a different approach to thinking about innovation. Tell me a little bit about how that conversation was for you.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting to have like an academic, mindset on the show. He's one of actually 2 YPOers that I know personally that we had on the show this season. And I just think he really operates with a lot of humility, which I appreciated. He talked about, really how institutions and academia are often the innovators and how we really can support them in the innovation that they're doing to continue to evolve and to improve as companies, as individuals, as a country. So I thought that was really interesting. I also thought that, he talked about the importance of intellectual property and intellectual property as an asset class. And that's something we just don't talk enough about. I mean, intellectual property, academia is who actually produces most of the intellectual property out there, but it is an asset. And we talk about investing and investing with purpose and investing with impact, it's one of the largest asset classes. I think it's the only asset class that's like in the Constitution, right? Like the right to bear trademark and to trademark your product and your services. And I think that's really cool. I think it's an often overlooked asset class.
Yeah. He also, thinking of the paradigm he took to investing, he thought about becoming an LP as a mechanism to learn.
Yeah.
And it's something that you and I have independently kind of bumped our way into with some investments that we've made. He specifically mentioned it in these incubator funds and angel funds and studio funds where these companies are investing super early stage at the kind of nascence of ideas. So I thought that was an interesting suggestion too, just a way to improve yourself as an investor is to actively seek out opportunities to put capital into things that are going to kind of force you to keep your eye on the ball of where the world's going.
Yeah. And I love that. And as you mentioned, you and I have done that personally. So obviously at Burgo, the asset class that we put a lot of our investment dollars into is multifamily, specifically Class B workforce housing in the heartland. But then we invest as LPs in other asset classes. And I've actually found it really interesting. I just had a call today with somebody who's in the manufactured housing space or mobile home parks. And I was like, I actually know a little bit about this space because I'm an LP in a fund that does self-storage and manufactured housing. And so to understand the different asset classes, as opposed to us being the operators of it, it's fun to just invest as an LP, get the quarterly reports. It's a great way to learn a new asset class.
Next up, we had Omar Khan. Omar is kind of one of your classic multifamily real estate guys. He talked a lot about just the perspective of not trying to time the market, but being in the market. People often, it's this timing the market versus time in the market.
Yeah.
And with multifamily, generally, especially for strategies like ours, we're fortunate to be in a market where there's not a ton of ups and downs, but staying the course and just kind of being disciplined with, hey, what are my core convictions about a particular investment strategy? Call it workforce housing in the heartland in our use case.
Yeah.
And stay the course. And so that was kind of the theme of our conversation with him. He's a guy who's clearly done a lot of multifamily investing across a few different market cycles. He's a younger guy, so he, like us, hasn't been through too many different cycles. But I really enjoyed that core message of stay the course, don't time the market, hold to your convictions.
Yeah, really good. And I know you mentioned you're kind of a personal finance geek, or I don't actually know what you called yourself, but you're into personal finance. And so the thought of dollar cost averaging is really a compelling strategy that I think I'm always just fascinated, as opposed to trying to, be the investment professional and like time the market and be smarter than everybody else. Just continue to invest. And I think that really bears fruit long-term from an investment standpoint.
Totally. I will say that it's been interesting as a real estate operator for us to experience in these last few years, just how much cycles really do drive the impact of your ability to execute on what you're trying to do from an investment standpoint. So if you can time the market, I think that's a great thing.
It helps.
But yeah, we can't predict the future. So
yeah, no doubt about it. Episode 5 was really interesting because we got to interview one of our vendors, and this is a relatively new vendor to Burgo, but Liran Gabbay, he's a founder in Israel that founded a product called Move On AI. And it's really all about artificial intelligence for multifamily operators, and specifically the asset management space. So, one of the things I liked that he talked about is one of the ways he actually said it is, hey, I'm helping people work the jobs that they actually want, right? Like I'm taking away the ugly spreadsheets and the complex data analysis, replacing that all with AI so that people can do the higher leverage work. It's not about replacing jobs. It's about giving people the jobs that they actually want.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really beautiful mission and vision for what he's trying to build. And in my personal seat, where I do some asset management work here at Burgo, I get really excited about what Liran is building. I've had, in some ways, a front row seat to see how that technology can definitively change my life in terms of how I spend my moments, and enable me to think about the things that I want to think about and be more strategic and ultimately drive the outcomes that we're trying to drive. So I'm very inspired by, seeing I look forward to having follow-on conversations with him to hear about the impact that he was able to have. It's an early stage company. They're still just kind of grabbing customers right now, but it's a powerful technology, and it's honestly just really inspiring to see not just, how technology can be a big business, but how that approach to AI in this particular use case is about impacting people's lives so that they can do the work that perhaps they were made to do. So totally agree with you. Really, really cool vision.
Yeah. And it's just fun to interview founders who are in the trenches. You and I are in those trenches day in and day out. And it's just fun to talk to other founders about the struggles and the challenges that they're dealing with. And episode 6 was a similar kind of vein. It was a founder. Now, in this case, this founder had previously had some success and some exits. But it was interesting talking to Vishal Gupta about his current kind of B2B software that he's working on and some of the consulting and advising that he's doing in that space.
Yeah, Vishal struck me as a guy who was able to, maybe a little theme here, continuously improve himself. His story was one of kind of transforming himself from just a technical guy to a leader, and to someone who is able to, not just be an effective engineer, but an effective company builder. And that kind of story, it really inspires me. And I got the sense from connecting with Vishal that he was very authentic in the way he approached his relationships and the way that he approached company building. So yeah, I also think he had this concept of, he thinks it's impossible to divorce impact from financial returns.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about how he thought about that paradigm, and he was basically like, look, it's all one big soup.
Yeah.
And if we're thriving, we're going to be having a great impact. And that probably means that our valuation's going up and we're making some money.
Yep. And that's something you and I talk about a lot is, a lot of people view that as like some kind of false dichotomy where it's like you can either have positive impact or you can have good financial returns. And we're often trying to explain that, well, actually the positive impact can lead and often does lead to those financial returns. It's by having that positive impact in our case, by taking care of our residents really well and take care of our employees really well, that we're able to produce outsized returns. And I think that Vishal really was a case in point for that. And just speaking of, our team and our employees and taking good care of them, it was really interesting that he said, reflecting on his 25-year journey, 25 years doing really impressive things in the tech space, he said it always comes down to people. Like the biggest problems he's had are hiring the wrong person, holding on to the person too long, or whatever. And it's just like, wow, what an important insight just to remember how important it is to have good people around you and good people executing on what we're trying to execute on.
Yeah. I really enjoyed Vishal and look forward to keeping in touch with him. Next up, we had Mike Morawski. Mike is another one of those people that, really had to reinvent himself over time. He had peaks and valleys. He talked about, being a really successful real estate guy and then losing it all, having to start over from scratch. And that's a story that we've heard from a number of people.
Yeah, 3 or 4 people on our podcast have lost everything that they own.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild to think about that. And they've recovered.
Yep. Leverage, in the real estate game.
Double-edged sword.
Cuts 2 ways. Yeah. So, but Mike's one of those guys, it really was clear to me. It emanated that his desire and passion for just actually helping people downstream from him is what's driving him. And he's doing it effectively. Coaching has become a pretty big business these days with, a lot of people setting up shop as a consultant or whatever. But Mike is doing that, but he gave us a lot of concrete examples of how he's helping people who want to grow in their own real estate business, just solve their problems. And he's been around the block a few times and he's really enjoying that. He's enjoying being able to add value to people and help them maybe avoid some of the mistakes that he's made. And he's done that pretty successfully. So I really was inspired by and enjoyed learning from Mike.
Yeah. And I thought it was a really important point. and I hate to sound like a skeptic, but I'm always a little bit wary of the guru, the person who's out there doing the coaching. And it's like, you really need to get under the hood and say, like, have you done this successfully? But what I really liked about him was this focus on mindset. And I think that that's really powerful. There are a lot of the real estate gurus out there that set up their own coaching practice that it's like, let me show you what a cap rate is, and let me show you how to underwrite a deal. And that's fine. I mean, today ChatGPT can just answer those questions. You don't need, to be paying some coach for that. But I like that he actually focused on the mindset that's required for success. I think that that's a often missing piece when it comes to coaching.
Yeah, he's told a story specifically about when he got excited about a potential client because he realized that their problem was that they were hitting a roadblock and they couldn't see the way through it. And so he realized, this is a person I can really help. If I can get them to recognize that there is a way here, and I just got to think about how might I be able to solve this challenge?
Right.
Then he gets excited and he's kind of licking his chops like, I can actually help this person. So,
yeah.
Super cool.
Yeah. Really interesting. And, then the last episode 8 was Sasha Bernier, another person I know through YPO. He's really done some impressive things from the investing side of the house. And one of the things he mentioned that I really liked, I thought was a powerful insight. And I've heard it before, but he really gave some color around it. But when you're investing, you're really investing on the jockey, not the horse. And I think that that's a really good reminder of, again, just the importance of people, the importance of understanding the people that you're actually investing with.
Yeah, we've always been big believers in that. And frankly, I think it's been on the other side too. I think when people have invested with us, they've generally invested because they believe in us as people, and they believe in the relationship and the trust there. So that really resonated. The other thing that I thought was really interesting was a little bit of a kind of a technical discussion around, cycles and how sometimes it's really easy to make money if everything's easy and everything's going right and rates are at zero. And sometimes it's really hard. And you guys kind of chatted about, Sasha had an opinion that, hey, now might be a really interesting time, which you and I happen to really agree with, that this could be a pretty good vintage to get into real estate over the next 12 months or so. But I just thought that was interesting. We've had a couple conversations about cycles recently, and he had a particular take on it that we kind of agree with.
Yeah. No, actually, totally agree. I mean, it's interesting. Like I definitely agree with you. We've been saying, hey, 2025, 2026 vintage funds are going to be among the best vintages since coming out of the great financial crisis. I mean, if you look at what happened in the great financial crisis, prices dropped. And then, those vintages that were right after that, 2010, 2011, they just did really well. I mean, you couldn't help but go up and to the right from there, right? Mm-hmm. Now, if you look at where we've been over the past 5 to 7 years, I mean, people who bought in 2021 and 2022 was a tough time to buy. I mean, most of those people are sideways at best. And yeah, you could look at our portfolio. And in fact, I was actually just thinking about this. We bought a deal in 2022 and just sold it for 2x. I think what we bought it for. So 3 years later, bought it for $6 million, sold it for 12. And so it's not entirely true across the board. I mean, I'm not trying to brag on ourselves, but there are some outlier cases, but you just have such a better shot when you're in a vintage that is just doing really well, when you're in a market cycle that's doing well. Like you said, I mean, you could dollar cost average and do fine. And that is kind of our thesis. We're always buying, we're always selling. But at the same time, if you can get in at the right time, it helps.
Yeah. There are moments where you can kind of get outsized returns. And I do think that having a strong thesis about a particular moment and a particular opportunity enables you to have outsized returns. And maybe this is one of those moments.
Yeah. No, I thought Sasha did a good job of thinking through that just as a, kind of a critical thinking investor type person. That was it. That was really our 8 episodes. I just really enjoyed this season. A lot of diversity of individuals in terms of their backgrounds and their fields of expertise. Any concluding thoughts from you, Dan, as we think about wrapping this season up and going into the next?
Really, I'm just excited for what's ahead. I think continuing with this theme of continuous improvement, we're looking forward to continuing to improve the podcast and continue to evolve it. Hopefully thinking about some format changes and just how we can really curate conversations that ideally add value to those who are listening to the podcast. So I'm super excited for what's ahead and grateful for the year behind us.
Yeah. And thanks to you all, our listeners, for listening in, for joining us for another season. Definitely, if you have any feedback, we'd love to hear it. If you have input on modifications to the format of the podcast or guests that we should be interviewing or anything else, please do reach out. We'd love your feedback, and we're super grateful for your support. Thanks, everyone. Have a good new year, and we will see you all in 2026. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Real Returns Podcast. We hope that you learned something new about how you can invest to make a lasting impact on those around you. Please be sure to subscribe to our show wherever you listen to your podcasts, leave us a review, and share about us on social media. We hope you will join us for our next episode, where we will be continuing the conversation around impactful real estate investing.